Jared clasped his hands together in an attempt to stop them from shaking. When his arms began to shake too, he let go and settled for just shaky hands. The platform he stood upon swayed ever so slightly on the water. The whole city was in constant motion, rising and falling with the gentle waves of the sea. Standing where, or at least right above where he had spent his childhood, yet recognizing absolutely none of it, was an odd feeling. It had been years since he had been here, and even the name had been changed to further signify that Portmore was not Portmore anymore. Portmore Bay, they called it now. He continued walking until he reached one of the wide water channels that served as the city's streets, the gentle lapping of the waves against the platforms creating a calming swishing sound. A mix of pedal-powered and solely electric vehicles glided up and down with little sense of rush. It was a stark contrast to the Portmore of yesteryear. He had grown up accustomed to heavy traffic on oil-stained roads, power lines crisscrossing overhead like a spider web, but not anymore. He looked up at the building next to him. The walls were slightly transparent, allowing him to see the spiral architecture inside where people sat at desks, tapping away at holographic keyboards. At the edge of the building was a sign, Fort Clarence Waterway, it said. Jared's chest tightened with an array of feelings. So this was the replacement for Fort Clarence Drive. As a child, he had used to ride his bike down it. The freedom he had felt, weaving between the traffic and pushing himself to go fast whenever a small part of the road went slightly uphill, filled him with warmth. Then came the dread, as vivid as it had been all those years ago, the nagging feeling he had always had whenever he was out of the house back then, the knowledge that at some point he would have to go back. There he is! Jared turned to see a woman walking towards him, dressed in a deep blue modular jumpsuit with multiple pockets and tall loops. Her locked hair was tied back with copper wire, decorated with small blue glass beads. Jared grinned. Candice. Oh, come here, Candice said, closing the distance between them with long steps, her arms held wide. They hugged and Jared found himself squeezing her hard, just about as hard as she was squeezing him. Candice pulled back to look at him. Wow, Jared, you have a beard now. I do, Jared stroked his chin. You like it? It suits you, Candice said with joy. You look great, Jared told her. Haven't aged a day. Candice laughed heartily, just like he remembered. Liar, look, there are wrinkles on my forehead. She pointed at them. Jared played dumb. I don't see them. There are, look. No, See? No idea what you're talking about. They both chuckled as Candice stepped back and touched his shoulder. It's so good to see you, she said. You two. Their eyes met for a moment. Hers were round and brown and full of energy. Then Candice cleared her throat and took her hand away. Come on, I'll give you a tour. You have to see what we've been able to do with the place. I'd love to, Jared said honestly. Over the years, he had kept up to date with news about Portmore, but it was only recently he and Candice had been in contact again. They hadn't spoken for years after the Great Flood, despite Jared following the progress of her career through the many news articles and media updates made about her. One day last year though, he had felt the urge to search her up on FaceHub and send a message. They'd been reconnected ever since. He hadn't wanted to come back to this place at all, but when Candice had suggested a visit for the 6th week in a row, he had finally relented. In all honesty, he just wanted to see her. She was the only reason to come back at all. Candice led Jared across a transparent footbridge over the Fort Clarence Waterway, leading to another floating platform where some workers were handling a pulley system. That's how we move goods between platforms, she explained when she saw him watching. Not with boats or these water cars? Jared asked, gesturing at one of the pedal-powered vehicles traveling down the waterway. We call them rafts, and yes, they are also used. We have classifications for the weight and class of every supply. The rafts are used for longer distance travel, while the pulleys are used for shorter platform-to-platform travel. It helps stop the waterways from getting too crowded. You remember what it used to be like? It would take hours to get through the city during rush hour. I remember well, the air used to be thick with smoke from the factories and trucks. Now the air smells, well, like the sea. I wonder why, Candice joked, and Jared grinned. No, but I mean it. It's so fresh. Halfway across the bridge, Candice stopped. Watch this. She lifted her left leg and stamped down hard. Jared's eyes widened as the area she had stamped lit up with a blue glow. Candice looked proud. Motion capturing tiles. It generates energy that is sent to one of the many converters around the city and converted into electricity. It's then sent through algae conductive networks to every corner of the city. That's incredible, Jared breathed. He stamped his foot as well, and sure enough, the bridge lit up underneath him. And you came up with all this? Candice suddenly looked shy. I had a lot of help. Stop being modest, chief engineer. I've seen the news. Weren't you up for a Nobel Prize? I didn't get it though. And anyway, I was elected to the position. It's a group effort here. Come, there is much to show. Jared followed Candice past more transparent buildings with solar panels on the roofs to a platform that opened into a large square. Families, couples and friends milled about the open space. Some sat at outdoor dining areas, others lounged on patches of grass with picnics, while the rest simply walked around talking and enjoying the atmosphere. This is the Central Plaza, Candice said. Jared narrowed his eyes, trying to get his bearings. This is above the Old Town Square? Candice nodded. Yes. You remember how much time we used to spend at the library? Of course. We'd do everything but read. Candice giggled, a sound he remembered well. Good times, she said. We were good together, Jared agreed as he looked at her wistfully. Then he realized what he had just said. Sorry, I didn't mean... No, it's fine. You have a husband now. I shouldn't say things like that. Candice ran her hand over her locked hair. Well, not anymore. What do you mean? We are getting a divorce. Oh. Jared wasn't sure exactly what to say. I'm sorry. I'm not, Candice spat. Little did I know our whole relationship was based on a lie. He said he was traveling for work. Turned out he was traveling to see his other wife. And 3 kids. Jared's mouth fell open. That's horrible. Candice sighed. I'm just glad I found out now. Before we had any children of our own, both me and his other wife left him. Serves him right, Jared said, and Candice nodded in agreement. What about you? A partner? Candice asked to change the topic of conversation. Oh, no. I had a few partners over the years, but nothing super long term. It's difficult to find someone, I guess. Candice glanced at him, or difficult to keep them once you found them. Their eyes met for a moment before they both looked away. Want a drink? A snack maybe? She asked quickly. I could eat. They made their way to one of the cafes. If memory served him, it seemed to be directly above where the fast food restaurant had been. As a child, Jared had been forbidden to eat there by his father. He hadn't much liked the type of food they sold, even then, but the more his father said no, the more he was desperate to eat there. He never had though. The cafe was on a small dedicated platform connected to the Central Plaza by 2 footbridges. This cafe was one of the first buildings built with the new plant cultivation system we created, Candice said as they approached. You created, Jared said, and Candice let out a playful sigh. No, really. We, Candice insisted. I had the idea, I presented it to the council, they agreed, and we all worked together to make it happen. Anyway, look at the walls. Jared gazed over to where Candice was pointing at herbs of all varieties growing in vertical patterns against the building's surface. That's where they get their ingredients from. Wow, Jared breathed. Inside, the cafe was reasonably busy, with most of the tables taken. Hanging light fixtures filled with bioluminescent algae emitted a pleasant glow, and the counter itself looked old, complete with visible patching and an obvious history. The menu was on glass panels, listing items Jared did not recognize. Most of the furniture is made from reclaimed materials from the submerged city, Candice explained when Jared asked about the unique looks of the tables and chairs. Candice and the other residents truly had used every resource available to make Portmore Bay into what it was today. In what most would have considered buried and lost forever, they had found extraordinary value. When Candice ordered a root tea, Jared just decided to make it too. They soon collected their drinks and settled at one of the few empty tables in the corner. Several people greeted Candice as they passed, and she responded enthusiastically to each of them. Seems like you are well liked here, Jared said once they had taken their seats. He took a sip of the root tea. The immediate taste was bitter, but the aftertaste had a mellow sweetness. It was a strange mix. Well, after the Great Flood, there weren't many of us left. Many died, more relocated. She looked intently at Jared before continuing. So the ones who remained became very close. We had to rely on each other to find the way forward, and we did. It truly is astonishing what you have achieved here. It makes me proud to say I come from Portmore. You could have been a part of it, Candice blurted. At Jared's taken aback expression, she quickly said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't. I know what it was like with your father. Let's not talk about that, Jared said carefully. Candice looked conflicted for a moment, but then her expression turned serious. No, let's. Candice, maybe it's the divorce making me think about what we once had and what we lost. That was a long time ago. Doesn't make it any less painful. You left, Jared. You were the one who always said we would get through anything together. Then the flood happened and you just left. You didn't ask me to come with you. You didn't tell me where you were going. You just got on a boat and disappeared. I know. I waited, for years. I thought you would come back. I believed you when you used to tell me we would stay committed to each other. I thought it wasn't you, Jared said more loudly than he had meant to. A few of the people at nearby tables turned to look. He glanced around somewhat embarrassed before turning back to Candice and lowering his voice. I had to get out, Candice. My father, he was mayor of this place. He owned it felt like. I know he mistreated you, Jared, but he died in the flood, and Portmore was covered. We could have started over. You and me. Tears pricked the corners of his eyes. He had never told anyone the truth. Parts of it, yes, but not the whole truth. You didn't know the half of it, he said. For just a brief moment, he was back in his parents' kitchen, watching as his father's face twisted in anger, and his mother went extremely still, as if hoping not to be noticed. He focused on Candice. I told you the minor things. I hoped by telling you some of what he did, you would understand why I was the way I was. When I told you I couldn't see you because my father wasn't letting me out of the house, the truth was that he had beaten me bloody. When I told you he was having a bad argument with my mother, it was often him threatening her life. I told you enough so you understood it wasn't good, but I didn't want to burden you with all of my problems. Candice's mouth was set in a thin line. I knew, Jared. You did? Of course I did. I saw the bruises. I saw your mother crying when I came to your house. My parents used to tell me how your father got at the bars when he drank, and I knew he would be worse when he got home. I wanted you to tell me. I was open. I was willing to support you. If you had just spoken to me before leaving. None of that is why I left, Jared said firmly. Why then? He took a deep breath. My father didn't die in the flood, Candice. He struggled to get the words out, but when he looked at Candice, the 10 years apart didn't matter. He still saw the girl he had loved, the girl he still loved. It was me. I killed him. What? It was the day before. He was holding a knife, threatening my mother. I'd had enough. I wrestled the knife away from him and I didn't know what to do, so my mother and I didn't tell anyone. We stayed home, thinking our lives were over. The next day, the flood happened. She died in the flood, my father was washed away, and I had to leave. Had to. The tears flowed down his face freely now, and Candice was silent for a long while. When she did finally speak, she put her hand over his. Portmore was a city of degeneracy, the people who lived there and the city itself. It was rotten to the core, but the flood changed everything. Many people died. More were injured. It was a tragedy. But now, Portmore Bay is flourishing. We are leading the world in sustainable living. Despite everything that happened before, we started again. I understand now that by getting away, you are starting again too. Jared looked up and squeezed her hand. She continued. I was distraught after the flood, losing my brother, losing you. But someone said something to me once that I take with me always. They said the toxicity of the city has finally been buried. Now we can build something anew on the foundations. So that's what I committed to, and you can as well. Jared thought for a moment. I don't regret leaving, he said slowly, but I do regret not taking you with me. Candice smiled. If you had, then I wouldn't have been able to help Portmore Bay. Besides, now you are here. For a trip, or longer, if I could convince you to stay. Jared looked around, taking in the happiness on people's faces as they shared drinks and warm greetings. In the years he had spent away, he had attempted to settle in multiple different places, but none of those places had felt like he belonged there. Not really. He didn't know if he belonged in Portmore Bay either. But then again, maybe it wasn't about feeling like you belonged, but choosing where you did. He lifted his root tea for another sip, no longer minding the bitterness that hit his tongue. Then when the sweet aftertaste came, somehow it felt much stronger than before. He finished the cup completely. Maybe you could, he said.
I got something to tell you. Look, this isn't the only story I've made. If you want to see another video like this, click this video right here.